Good evening, everyone. I see some of you are joining us already. Welcome to our digital mural reveal. We're so excited to have you all joining us. We're going to wait a few more minutes as everybody logs on and gets on the YouTube stream, but I wanted to let you know right away that since we will be taking questions, you can use the chat function of the YouTube Live right under the video to ask questions, to comment, to react. And since you're joining us and you're right on time, if you want to share the link of this live right now on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, whatever you use, or on your family group chat, whichever it is, please do so. It would be great to have so many of your friends and family join us. But we will start in another minute or so. Thank you for joining. Good evening, bonsoir to those of you that are joining us since I just did a little introduction. Thank you to those of you that are super excited in the chat. I am too. One of you, Randy, you asked if the video would be available after. Yes, it will. So you can also share it afterwards. But okay, let's take another minute before we start. In the meantime, I'm just quickly going to introduce myself, welcome you all to this digital space. My name is Aliénor, or Ali Rougeau. I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm a climate justice activist. I've been involved in the school climate strike movement for a few years, and I am now lucky to work at Environmental Defense, where I think a lot about just transition and how we can make it happen in Canada. So it's really a pleasure to be with you here tonight. As we get started, I would like to make us maybe reflect a little bit on where we're all standing, where we're all living, and where we get to work and play. I am a settler on this land. I moved to what is colonially known as Canada 4 years ago, but the territory that I'm on, which is called Toronto or Toronto, has been the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations for millennia. It is in particular the territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations, and many other documented and undocumented nations that have taken care of this land before I arrived here and before we settled here. I think you've heard land acknowledgements before, and they are important because there has been an attempt to erase the history of Indigenous peoples on this land. And so doing a land acknowledgement is our first step towards fighting this erasure. However, I think we can all agree that just acknowledging at the beginning of an event will not right any past wrongs. And so I would like to call on us to reflect a little more on how we can act, what we can do to really mean our land acknowledgements. In June 2015, there was a report that came out of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and they had 94 calls to action declaring how government, how organizations, how us Canadians, how we could work towards reconciliation. And so if you've never seen those 94 calls to action, it would be a great time right after this event to go and check them out, because there's truly something everybody can do. And you can do so as an individual, you can do so as a member of an organization or an institution. And really in those 94, there surely are some that fall within your reach. So I really encourage you to do that. And the last element that I will mention as part of this acknowledgement is that tonight we're talking about a just transition, and there really is no just transition without including Indigenous peoples. We have to include them as sovereign nations on this land, but we also include them because they are workers, many of them in the sectors that we're going to be speaking to tonight. And they're also community members of communities that will be impacted by the changes in our economy. And so for all these reasons, Indigenous peoples have to be included in our plans, and that has to be a commitment that we're all making as we talk about a just transition. So thank you very much for being here. I see more and more of you are joining. Thank you so much for saying hi in the chat. It's lovely to see you. We will be taking your questions a little bit later. So if you want to drop your questions for the panelists, for the partners, please do so in the chat whenever they pop up in your mind. We will now get started, and we will first meet the partners for this event. It's very exciting for me to introduce you to Derek, Rebecca, Andre, and Chad, who are all part of the organizations that have partnered to do this. I will now invite the four of them to put on their cameras, and in order, I will call you and you can give a little introduction. So your name, which organization you're a part of, and just very briefly, your title within that organization, what you do. And maybe Derek, we can start with you.
Hi, my name is Derek Richmond. I'm with the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. I've been a postal worker for 20 years. I'm also the campaign coordinator for the Delivering Community Power campaign in the province of Ontario.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Short and sweet. Rebecca.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Keach, and I am a auto worker at GM and a proud member of Unifor Local 222. I also work as an organizer with Green Jobs Oshawa.
Wonderful. Thank you. We're so excited to have you. Chad.
Hi, my name's Chad Tyson. I'm with the Signs of Life Mural project here in Durham region, Ontario. And we bring artwork to some of the harder hit areas so that we can create foot traffic to get people shopping at the small businesses.
Wonderful. Very excited to have you here. And Andre.
Hi, everyone. I can't believe this is happening after months of us preparing for this. But my name is Andre Forsyth. I'm the founder of the School for Climate and Canadian Climate Challenge. And with the School for Climate, we're focused on creating avenues for artists to find a way into the climate space and to find a way to connect with folks in ways that normally wouldn't be possible by news media and with articles and such. So thank you all for everyone for joining today.
Thank you very much, Andre. Thank you for the four of you for introducing yourselves, bringing a little bit of the vision that all your organizations are bringing to this. I will now invite you to just turn off your cameras for the next segment, just so we can get settled in this topic and kind of understand better what is bringing us together. Tonight, we're really going to be celebrating the product of a collaboration between artists, between communities, between workers, as you've just heard, people that really had a vision and got together to make it happen, especially in the middle of a pandemic. I find it extremely impressive. And so I'm really excited for you all to get to see the mural. But before that, I do want to touch a little bit on this idea of a just transition, because if you clicked on this event, it means you probably saw the phrase before. Perhaps you know much more about it, or perhaps you know nothing at all beyond the phrase. And so I'd like to take a moment to think, what is a just transition? And the reality is that it's actually a very, very complicated question. And I myself could never give you a full correct answer. So this discussion after the reveal is going to help us kind of understand, what is a just transition? What are the different views about what it should look like? And just understanding better the complexity behind this phrase that sounds so simple. However, for those of you that have never heard about it, it might be useful for us to start with a beginning of a definition, and we'll fine tune it a little later. But the idea of a just transition is thinking about how we move forward to a sustainable economy, to a sustainable world to live in, while leaving no worker behind and while leaving no community behind. So this is really this idea of a transitioning to a cleaner future, and at the same time of leaving no one behind and having everybody included. So now we need to talk about why the mural in all of this. It is almost time for you to see it, but before that, I'd like to invite Seth Klein to turn on his video to provide us with a little more context. I would love for you to tell us about the context, the role of art, murals, perhaps even once in a while propaganda on creating movements and creating the change that we need. So Seth, what can you tell us on the role of art in this fight?
Sure, happy to, Ale, and hello everybody, and congratulations on this project. I appreciate. I'm standing in the way of the big reveal here, but I'll say a couple of things in answer to your question, Ale. By the way, I'm joining you from the other side of the country on the West Coast, from the unceded territories of the Sechelt people on the Sunshine Coast in British Columbia, and I'm thrilled to be here with you. And on the role of the arts, look. Every great mobilization needs the arts, and the climate mobilization is, of course, no different. And at this climate crossroads moment, this time of existential threat, we need the arts in this fight. As some of you know, I recently wrote this book called A Good War, Mobilizing Canada for the Climate Emergency. And there is a section, and it's all rooted on lessons from the Second World War. In the Second World War, the arts played a critical role in societal mobilization. It took work. You know, a lot of us think everyone was, we declared war and everyone was ready to rally. Not true. It took work to get the public engaged. When artists were there, painters went to the front to document the fight. Filmmakers pumped out films. Artists produced the ubiquitous posters that rallied and recruited the public. Musicians produced a popular soundtrack for that fight and more. And we need that again today. And so slowly, artists are now producing creative works that speak to the climate emergency, which is great to see. Much of it, I would note, is understandably dystopian. Now, we need that, of course, right? This is a scary time. And we are all motivated in this fight, in part by fear, but we're also motivated by love and hope. And it's interesting to note that the art of World War II was not in the main dystopian, despite how horrific the context was. Rather, in tone and in feel, it rallied us. And so I think, the challenge to artists today is more of that. Whatever your artistic domain, scare us a bit, but rally us as well. And I think that's what you are about to get a taste of from Chad and Bruno. And I do want to say this final thought. The arts also can speak. The arts can also speak to an historic moment. And I love that this is happening in Oshawa, which is the site of these historic auto strikes, because pivotal fights and struggles, whether it's a strike or a war or a natural disaster or an occupation, they transform us. They embed in us a new understanding of solidarity and the power of collective action. They're a chance for each of us to become our best selves. And workers in Oshawa, at least those who know their history, they know this. And now we need to apply that lesson to the climate emergency. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Seth. You really helped us just set the context, get even more excited for this reveal. I feel like I can't wait. And I loved the reminder that it takes work to get the public engaged. I really like the reminder that art can do some of that work and a very important part of it. So thank you for that. I'll invite you to just turn off your camera while I introduce you folks to our artists, because this huge, beautiful mural did not just appear overnight. It took a lot of hard work. And so the artists behind the mural are Bruno and Chad, and I'll start by introducing you to Bruno. Bruno actually began in 2004 painting on walls with spray paint in Brazilandia, where he grew up, which is a precarious neighborhood of Sao Paulo in Brazil. And Bruno gained international and professional recognition through his artistic journeys, and he really traveled all around the world, or almost at this point. And Bruno is just always looking for artistic exchanges and looking at new places to learn and to teach art as part of his lifestyle. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, Bruno, you were responsible or very involved with the new beautiful art that's appeared in Toronto as well at the Rendezvous. So very inspiring and very happy to have you as part of this project. Chad Tyson, who also contributed to this massive project, is a muralist, a creator, and the lead artist of The Paint Factory. And he has 23 years of experience, painting graffiti-style murals. And he actually he mentioned it a little bit before, worked with local governments to get the first legal graffiti art walls in Durham region to provide public outlets to local artists for creative expression, with also the idea of bringing folks to that region. So we're going to get to meet them virtually by just watching a short video of them that should be appearing right now.
I mean, there's always like that idea of an environment and green taking over, always not like 100% beautiful. There's always that contrast of a little chaos, right? Like just like this one, it's like an organized chaos. This is the most urgent of times and the most urgent of mess.
We're actually very lucky to have somebody like Bruno Smoky come to Oshawa and leave his mark. I'm pretty good, but I wanted to like kind of take some of the best guys in the world and bring them here and let them do their art because it's going to help the community.
Wow, some of the best guys in the world right there in Oshawa. Thank you very much for sharing that video. I hope you got excited to just see, you got a little sneak peek of the mural already, so we cheated a little bit there, but you got to see the artists and the folks that really brought this mural to life. And now I'm gonna stop talking and let you enjoy the full reveal of this mural, which really was the collaboration of so many folks, and I hope you get to enjoy it and you'll be able to watch it more in full through the School for Climate resources that we'll post afterwards. But please enjoy the reveal. Well, Melby, we'll wait a few seconds. There we go. All right, just gonna check in quickly with our tech folks. Are we supposed to be hearing some sound? Because we are not, it seems. If you wanna just replay that and connect the sound. Yeah, sorry about that. You probably have to get your sound shared as well.
Okay, so what, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Can you hear that?
Thank you, yes.
Yes.
I think it looks fantastic. It's good. It's a great community. It's a pretty cool.
The mural is a statement for sure. And I'm hoping that it's going to engage people in the conversation of what a just transition is, what it can mean for the community. I think that people are going to come and they're going to learn lessons from it and have ideas come from it that we can't even think about right now.
I feel fantastic. Barring other things like rain that's delayed the project a little bit, of course, it's natural elements. I feel great. Again, the only way we're going to get everybody on board and move to where we need to go is if we get everybody hearing these messages and feeling the connection to them. So that's what we're hoping for.
So actually, and so everybody heard it that time, right? Okay.
Yes, it was wonderful.
Sorry about the technical issue there. And by technical issue, I mean my ineptitude. So I'll take responsibility for that. But we actually have a surprise, which I don't think most of the partners on the call know about. So if you guys can stay muted, that's totally fine. And we're gonna go to Rebecca Noseworthy, who's a surprise participant today. Rebecca, if you could turn on your mic and your video.
Hi, everyone. I am live on location just down here at 103 Simcoe Street South in downtown Oshawa to show you the mural in person. If I can turn my screen around here, let me just figure this out. Oh, here we go. There it is in all of its glory for you all to see live today. I'm just going to take a few steps back so everyone can really get a good idea of the scale of this wall. It's huge. It's our biggest wall, I think, that we've done under Signs of Life so far. So thanks to everyone for being involved in this. And thanks, Bruno and Chad, for making it look so beautiful.
That is amazing. I mean, I'm so kind of a surprise for most of the people on the call. And Rebecca, if you could walk up to it just a little closer. There's one, we're gonna share a final photo with you in a second as we go into our discussion and you can see the finer details, but it's just, I'm so happy she's there so you can see the actual scale of the size of it. The impact in person of being there is something that is just so difficult to replicate on camera. And so I know we're going to be doing lots of events there so we get folks out to see it in person, but just so you can see the scale of a 75-foot by 40-foot wall and the impact that that has. And we'll have video at the end of the call so you can also see that as well. But
yeah, if there's anywhere in particular you wanted me to point out, I can do that too.
No, that's okay. We can we're gonna put up the actual full image as soon as we get off of camera with you. So don't worry about that. But thank you, Rebecca, for being there so we can see the whole thing in full detail.
No problem.
That is so
okay, awesome. Yeah, back to you, Ali.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for taking that little trip and showing us. That's beautiful. I didn't get to see it like that. That is so exciting. I feel like our panelists are also super excited to see it. I hope you enjoyed that reveal. I'll ask our artists to turn on their camera. We do want them to have the spotlight for a second. So Chad and Bruno, whenever you're ready, feel free to turn on your camera. And I'm actually going to go to Kat first, and then maybe Seth for some initial reactions to this wonderful reveal, and maybe a question to the artists, since I think you also just saw it for the first time, just like our audience. So Kat, how do you feel?
Wow, that's amazing. What a treat to be part of this reveal and to be one of the first people to get a glimpse of this, who's not on the ground. And this is one of the challenges of having so many Zoom events, is that you don't get to hear the applause that is in our hearts. So big applause to you guys. Thank you so much for sharing this incredible work with us. Okay, I have something to admit to you all. I am a climate nerd, but I am also an art school kid. I went to Etobicoke School of the Arts for high school. I'm not a visual artist, I'm a theater nerd, but I do have a deep appreciation for the arts and spend a lot of my time hanging out with my artist friends. So I'm really curious to hear from you, Bruno, Smoky. Like, tell us about your process. I saw some lifts involved. This thing is huge. Like, how did you make this happen?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, guys, for having me here. And yeah, I'm speechless just hearing you guys saying everything about it, and like, you know, not just the mural, but like the cause of social climate change and you know, all what it's in. I'm a very believer too, and yeah, I do appreciate all the, you know, groundwork that people are doing throughout the years, and you know, really putting attention on those details, not just in Canada, but like throughout the world. And yeah, you know, as my art speaks for itself, this is not my first one that I've done. So I've been working, you know, touching that, you know, the same key for quite a while already. And I do believe that art has a power to change a little bit, especially public art, which is us, the painters out there, right? And yeah, I'm just so glad that I got invited to be part of this epic project. And well, speak a little bit of technique and terms of how we came up with this concept and everything. So Chad and I initially, we had a different wall to do, and it was a lot smaller. And like, you know, automatically the concept in my brain was a little bit different. But because, you know, as an artist, you evolve, and you don't want to be stuck in one subject all the time, right? So you try to keep pushing your boundaries to do different things and better yourself, right? But always trying to keep a nice theme and you know, making people talk and like, you know, cause controversial sometimes, like dialogue, you know, like people standing in front of it. I like people to not just see my work and say, oh, how pretty, but rather than like, oh my God, this is so accurate, you know? So so right here, what we were looking at, it's initially the idea was supposed to be Oshawa's landscape being elevated and a little more, you know, standing out more than all the rest of Ontario landscape in the term of like, you know, the workers and the power and the difference that they make in society, in Canadian society, right? In terms of like building and the activism and all this. And so that on its own, it's carrying, it's making the like Oshawa flying above a little bit, and the nature automatically is taking over Oshawa back. So because, you know, Oshawa, you know, you can't stand out, but you can never, you know, cross past nature, right? You gotta protect and always respect nature. So because they always gonna, like, you know, nature is so strong and powerful that it's gonna take back. So we're just guesses, right? So we are not here to take over and modify the planet. We're here to, like, just to live as another as another creature, right? That's my belief in. And this mural, it's projecting that. It's like reflecting back into the nature and showing the audience that you can't just, like, ignore the fact that the problem, it's out there, and you have to work with the nature, like work with our, like, resources, and make sure that whatever you're touching it, you're not gonna affect and have a waste and all that. So I guess and then obviously we have Oshawa transportation there, because that was the whole not Oshawa transportation, the Canada Post, and it's almost like the tree, it's a factory, so it's bringing a whole new fresh and green energy and coming out with a greener future. So and the workers are still not happy about it, so they're protesting up there. And yeah, I mean, there's so many layers of that I can come up with here. But honestly, in my opinion, I like to put the ideas out there and let the public to decide how they see and how they interpret it in their own. I find that there's a lot more. Sometimes I can put a title and somebody else just walk by and see it, like, oh my God, that is like, and they put a title that it was a lot better than mine, and I love it a lot more, So I kind of keep it open for people to really, absorb and reflect back to me or to whoever else they're interacting in that moment. So yeah, that's basically it.
I love it. Okay, I also realize I haven't introduced myself, so sorry. I'm Catherine Arcade-Abreu. I'm the current executive director at Climate Action Network Canada. And
wow, that's incredible. Nice meeting you. Yeah.
Good to meet you too. Yes, and I'm here in Ottawa, which is the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. I have one more question. I'm curious about this circle in the background. What is it?
So yeah, it's not 100% visual, but that's the compass. So it's really grounding people and localizing people where they are at, in time, in history, and in place. So just to give it that, and also looks beautiful in the background too. It almost like brings on an angle, in a perspective. So in terms of composition, I always try to find good elements to have it as a background, and in my opinion, that one was like the best option, and it goes completely with the theme and all that. So yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Flor de lotus, so that's how we call it in Portuguese, but it's the compass, right?
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Thanks, Kat, for those reactions and excellent questions. And thank you, Bruno, for providing all your vision. Chad, I'm sure you have things to add. Let's have maybe Seth ask the question and direct it to you, Chad. And Bruno, you'll let us know if you want to add. So Seth, did you have a reaction? Question?
Yeah, I mean, so this is the first time I'm seeing this too. And Bruno and Chad, you just knocked this out of the ballpark. I mean, I was part of some early discussions with Andre about and Rebecca and Derek about where this could go. You killed this. And as I'm looking at all the layers of it, so first of all, I said earlier, we need art that isn't dystopian, and this isn't. In an era when we need people to leap into a new world, and that's scary because we can't picture it. You have painted it for us, and it's beautiful, that future world. And like, you've got the alternative energy, you got the people power, you've got the delivering community power with the new postal buses, you got the high-speed rail, but mostly what I see is it's the world turned upside down, right? You've buried the old world and you've given us this new world. And it's beautiful. And Andre, I want a poster of this. You're gonna have to distribute posters across the country because I'm on the other side of the country and I want this up in my office. So please make posters. Okay, that's my reaction, not a question. So I guess my question is to Chad. I guess I'm just curious how you pulled the different elements together. Like when the two of you sat down, and I know you probably got hit with a whole bunch of concepts, but how did you move from that that brainstorm of concepts into what we now see before us? And I'm just curious. I guess I'm also curious about whether or not Oshawa has any particular meaning for you.
Yeah, the way that we work together, we've both done this like so many times on different projects, and you just kind of put trust in each other. So Bruno puts trust in me, and I put trust in him, and we just guide each other. And to be honest, when you've done it as long as we have, you just kind of go into autopilot and you just bounce off each other. And it's like, okay, what are you doing? Okay, you're doing the leaves. Okay, I'm going to do this. And we just kind of work together. The difference is a lot of my work is very 2D. The traditional graffiti style, that sells for me, for my business and my kind of like the things I do. And then Bruno, he's very 3-dimensional. So it was really cool to watch him work on just something as simple as like the pipe coming out of the ground. There's like a 7-color transition on this pipe with a highlight. Like that's something where I might do a 2 or 3. So it was really cool to work alongside him and kind of see how he takes something that's I would see as basic, and then he would turn it into something like you can't even the ground. If you look at the 3-dimensional break of the ground, there's like 7 different colors in there. There's like blue, pinks, purples, aquas, and like everything is kind of like you can't really tell until you see it in person. But yeah, it's really cool. And then as far as your second question about Oshawa, what it means to me is my daughter grew up here. I had a youth center and an art gallery in the downtown core, and it's kind of depressing, but one of the stories that really stick with me is this young girl that came into my shop. I was trying to give her some guidance, and I was like, oh, she's probably like 11. And I was like, what do you want to be when you're older? And she goes, oh, I wanted to be a vet. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. You love animals? That's a great idea. She goes, yeah, but my mom says it's too much school. And it just crushed me because I was told as a child from my mom that you could be anything. And I was like, that whole saying, reach for the stars, it really means a lot more to me now, because I didn't realize that in Oshawa, so many of these kids growing up there, they're given ceilings. So they're not allowed to be amazing. They can just be okay. And a lot of the kids that grew up under the GM and the workers, their children are growing up. And because GM went under, I don't know if they see the future. So things like Green Jobs and the murals and all the work we do on the street, it's just to kind of provide, it's just to show examples of success. And we want to show examples of change. And we don't want to just talk about it. And we don't want to go to 50 meetings about it and then nothing get done. We want to go and we want to actually get involved, make stuff happen. And the thing with Signs of Life and the things with myself as an artist is if I say I'm going to do something, I'm getting it done 100%. Like there's no talking. And we're trying to motivate, we're trying to get the city to back us and everything so they can see, listen, okay, whatever we invest in these people, this group, you're going to get tenfold the results of what you would get by investing in something else. You know what I mean? But just learning the things I learned about green energy and the things I learned about green jobs and the future of what the Postal Union is, the postal workers are, what their plans are for the future. It's pretty inspiring. That's all.
Thank you so much, Chad, and thank you, Seth, for asking the right question for Chad to give us all this wonderful background and context. I feel so inspired, and I do want to point out, I did hear that idea that we needed posters, which of course will be delivered to your doors by postal workers in electric vehicles, and so that's so exciting, Andre. We're just giving you more work, and now recenter this whole conversation around the folks that are at the center of this mural and the workers, because this is really the folks that we want to hear of right now. So Derek and Rebecca, if your cameras aren't on yet, oh, there you are. I'd love to hear from you, and maybe we can start with Rebecca. Can you tell us more about who you are, what your organization does, what your role is in it, and most importantly, what does the Just Transition mean to you and to your organization?
Thank you. And good evening to everybody. Thank you so much for coming to check out this exciting project. So I'm an organizer with Green Jobs Oshawa, and Green Jobs Oshawa fights for social, economic, and environmental justice. We want to articulate how outcomes for workers, communities, and the planet are directly connected to the way that we make decisions on how we produce things, what we produce, and why we produce it. So what we want is to organize in Oshawa and fight for full usage of our city's productive resources and capabilities. We imagine Oshawa as a hub for the production of sustainable technology and for addressing other social needs, resulting in shared public prosperity, not private profit. We believe a different approach to production would create justice for workers, communities, and the planet. And we can and must convert exploitative production practices to socially beneficial ones that provide meaningful work. We have to stop producing things we don't need and build a strong economy based on providing the things that we do need. Now, what's a just transition? It's a word that's thrown around a lot, but what does it really mean? To Green Jobs Oshawa, a real just transition is a lot more than just retraining. It means a transformation of how we live, work, and travel. It means social justice, economic justice, and environmental justice that leaves no community and no worker behind. We don't want to just survive the climate crisis. We want our community to thrive. And a thriving community supports the development of everyone's full creative, intellectual, and physical potential. We have to work collectively and reinvest in communities, fight privatization of public services, and end the harm caused by unequal distribution of resources. And I have to say, I'm just so proud that we were able to bring this mural to Oshawa with the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, the School for Climate, and the Signs of Life. It is stunning and powerful to me, and it's the transformation of the future that we want, and that it has to be rooted in workers and community. To me, this mural is in motion, and it shows that transformation is an active process. And this includes struggle and fighting for the future we deserve. Oshawa has a proud history of fighting for a better future and looking after people, and we have to continue to come together to create the world we want.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. What an incredible definition and complex articulation of what is needed. That was very, very powerful. I loved your vision. I love that you talked about the different sets of justices we need. We need the social justice, the economic justice, and the environmental one. And I love that you showed us how Oshawa can move forward with new modes of production, but existing communities, existing resources, existing skills. So thank you for that. And I'll point out that you're the second person today to mention this collective mobilization and engagement that we need. That was wonderful. Thank you. Derek, what about yourself? Tell us who you are and what you folks do.
First off, my name is Derek Richard. I'm with the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, the campaign coordinator for delivering community power. First off, I would like to thank everyone for attending tonight. I would also like to acknowledge Green Jobs Oshawa, School for Climate, and Signs of Life for the months of dedication for making this mural a success. I would also like to personally thank Bruno and Chad for the hard work and creativity in making this beautiful mural. Everybody involved spent months of meeting where our creativity, transparency, and communication made this mural a success. Included in this mural is the Canadian Union of Postal Workers Delivering Community Power campaign. And to answer your question, Ali, a just transition for postal workers is delivering community power. So our delivering, and also as a union, CUPW wants to be a leader in a just transition. All unions play a massive role in a just transition, not just the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. So to get into more of a just transition for postal workers, the Delivering Community Power campaign focuses on electrifying Canada Post's 13,000 postal vehicles by 2030. This is the largest fleet in Canada. Imagine how much of a reduction of CO2 emissions being released into the air daily if this fleet was electrified. Our Delivering Community Power campaign doesn't stop there. We would also like to see all Canada Post facilities be retrofitted with solar panels, along with a secure, reliable public network of charging stations at all of our 6,800 plus locations. Imagine a secure network of charging stations from coast to coast. This network will encourage the public to feel more secure in purchasing and traveling in electric vehicles in the future. This is why CUPW was extremely excited in partnering with Green Jobs Oshawa for this mural. With our Delivering Community Power campaign that focuses not only on the environment and Canada Post, but on manufacturing. We think the manufacturing of electric vehicles must be made right here in Oshawa. Oshawa has a rich history in labor and manufacturing of vehicles. I can't think of a better place to display this mural right here in Oshawa to bring awareness that Oshawa must be a world leader in the manufacturing of electric vehicles. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you for sharing this with us. I really appreciate you folks having the ambitious targets, but you also have the community power behind to actually get to those targets. Much appreciated. I would now like to go, sorry, difficult to speak at this time, to Andre, who obviously has been a huge part of this project from the start and really has created a lot of the vision behind this. Andre, any initial reacts? How do you feel now that we actually get to do this reveal and talk about this just transition?
Thank you for the question, Ali, and thank you everybody for coming. I was lucky enough to be there throughout the process, and I'm blown away every time I see it. I left there on Sunday and had to have a few days away from it, and had nightmares about leaving it alone out in the world without us being there every day to protect it. I don't know how Chad and Bruno do this for a living, create such works of beauty that you get deeply connected to, and then just say, okay, I'm just going to leave that there in the public and hope that it's okay, was crazy for me. And I think everyone is too polite to mention that this was, as much as we loved every moment, it was a labor of love, the whole process. I think Chad and I first spoke in March, Rebecca and I not too long after that. Seth, I annoy on a weekly basis with messages for updates and guidance all the time. And everyone has been so willing to put as much of themselves into this process as possible. And we were on the ground every day for 8 days, and giving Bruno that feedback and Chad that feedback that's live. And as an artist, we invite artists to come into the space where some of us are experts or different levels of understanding when it comes to topics like just transition, and to take on the weight of, okay, so we've got this topic that even we've got many years of experience on here, which we can barely come to a collective definition of. And what we want you to do is now translate that in a way that's not only visually appealing, but then also connects with a very wide audience. So I raise my hat to Bruno for putting himself in that area of uncomfortability, and for Chad for supporting him in that, and for Signs of Life for jumping in there as well, because what we conveyed in here was such a combination of all of our visions and really gets that across. It really centers workers in a just transition. It really communicates how they're rooted not only in the history of Oshawa but in the future, and that when I look at the mural and seeing how we came up with that idea of routing workers in the trees, and it's a collaborative process. And then the postal vehicles coming out of the trees, brilliant idea. And like I can't tell you the amount of brainstorms we had with different collaborations of us, and for this to come out the way that it is, and on such a scale as well, we're looking at this on our screens, collecting or connecting digitally, and for Chad and Bruno to be working, I don't know how to contextualize them. That's why it was really important that Rebecca was there today and caught it live. I don't know how you can work this far away from a massive wall like that and then step back and have this incredibly beautiful vision. And I think that also speaks to kind of what we're trying to do is you have to be working on that kind of small scale and the local with like massively focused vision, but then be able to step back and make that connection to and have that bigger picture and link everything in. So I think that's why for us it was why it's super important to do it in Oshawa, super important to get the postal workers involved, to get that local vision and connect it to the wider. So I'm so thankful every day for both for everyone who was involved. And yeah, I've gone on way too long. So somebody else, please take the mic away from me.
Andre, thank you so much. Thank you for bringing in that energy. And thank you for perfectly transitioning into my next question. It's almost as if we're thinking about these topics all the time together. So we had the local vision and we had from Rebecca and Derek what's happening right there in Oshawa. But I want to take a step back from the mural and getting a little broader. Let's think Canada-wide. The Minister of Natural Resources just came out saying, oh, Canada is going to be consulting on what a just transition means to communities. So this topic is in the news. It's clearly on the political agenda somewhere. Let's go to Seth first, and then I'll go to you, Kat. What does a just transition mean to you for Canada?
Thanks. Well, I mean, first of all, there's the list many of us know about what we need when we talk about just transition. First of all, it means a massive public investment in new green and social infrastructure. It means offering an actual good jobs guarantee, not just for workers and communities that currently rely on the fossil fuel sector or the traditional auto sector, but really for all of those communities that have been most harmed by the fossil fuel industry. And really for anyone who wants a job building the green and social infrastructure that we're going to need for this grand transition before us. Obviously, it involves some retraining and relocation supports for some people, early retirement bridging for others. It especially means transition for communities. The reality is that when we look at a sort of 20-year wind down period for the fossil fuel sector, many of the current workers will retire in that time. But whole communities that are reliant on that sector need support. And alternatives. It means a climate action dividend for low and middle income households to help with this transition. These are, the key elements that we often talk about, but I want to go a bit broader to say, the change is coming. Just in May, we had the International Energy Agency. This is the global think tank for the oil industry that they created in the 1970s, and that the Trudeau government and so many of our provincial governments, every time they launch another fossil fuel infrastructure project, they've tended to point to reports from the International Energy Agency. In May, the International Energy Agency said that to keep global temperature rise to a safe level, all new fossil fuel developments and all new fossil fuel infrastructure needs to stop as of now. And so to tie the future well-being of working people to these industries is really to consign them to a life of tumult and job loss and uncertainty. We need to be offering something else. We need to be offering an ambitious and hopeful Green New Deal. And really the transformation, there's going to be a transformation, a response to the climate crisis. And whether it occurs in a manner that is just and fair or unjust and repressive remains sadly an open question. And past industrial revolutions have cared little for those whose lives get turned upside down by these changes. Another change is coming. And our challenge is to try as best we can to ensure that this one unfolds differently. And I think in the face of this historic moment, there's also a leadership challenge for every trade union and labor union and its leaders, that they have a decision to make, a moment of reckoning as we confront this emergency. Do you want to resist this call for climate mobilization and fight a rearguard action against the grand transition that needs to happen? Or do we boldly engage our members and invite them to join in leading that change? And not just demanding a seat at the table, but taking it to the next level. Like, what if unions took charge of the retooling of our economy and forced our governments and employers to run to catch up? The core duty of any union is to secure better pay and benefits and working conditions. But at this critical juncture, surely equally important is the task of securing a safe future for our children and grandchildren. And given that, for every workplace a union represents, why not have the union drive the development of a carbon zero plan and take it to the bargaining table? And if it's rejected, occupy the workplace, just like these historic strikes that happened in places like Oshawa. Think of it as the next generation of sit-down strike, and invite local teenage climate strikers to join you in common cause, and they will remember that for the rest of their lives, that the power that comes from young people and workers joining forces. And for those of you who get to do that with your own kids, you and your children will share an experience of solidarity that you will cherish for the rest of your lives. That time that we acted together when called upon to confront this emergency. All right, I will stop there.
Kat, what about yourself? What does this mean to you?
I think at the base of it, what we're talking about here is not just about reducing greenhouse gas emissions to combat climate change, but actually building a better world while we do it, right? Like, that's the basics of what I hear and feel when I hear the phrase just transition. And what that means for me is working at the structural level. So, Seth touched a little bit on those sectors of those economic sectors that are going to be most implicated in a just transition toward a climate safe economy. We're obviously talking about greenhouse gas intensive sectors there, in particular oil and gas sectors. So the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change told us back in 2018, when they released their special report on warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius, that we need to be reducing emissions, cutting emissions globally in half by 2030 and getting to zero emissions by 2050. And what that means is we need to break our addiction to fossil fuels. And so, of course, the global production and supply of fossil fuels has to wind down. And we often, I think, when we talk about just transition, get really zeroed in on that sector, saying, okay, let's discuss how we plan for this transition out of our addiction to fossil fuels, how we wind down that production in a responsible way that takes care of the people and communities who rely on the jobs in that sector. But in fact, we're talking about something bigger than that, right? So it involves that discrete project of figuring out how those workers who are employed in oil and gas production are taken care of in that transition. But it also means thinking about how we diversify our economy so that we are investing in those sectors that will provide prosperity and good jobs for decades to come. And for me, as a East Coaster who grew up in Toronto, because my family had to move from Nova Scotia to the middle of the country in the 1980s and 90s in the lead up to and wake up of the cod fishery collapse. I've seen what it looks like when governments see the writing on the wall, know the transition is inevitable, and fail to act. And so I want to make sure that we're not just thinking about, okay, how is this one particular sector of workers going to be planned? How is their transition going to be planned for? But I want to make sure we're also thinking about, how do people get to live in the communities they want to live in? How do people get to stay with their families? How do we end this this process of forced labor migration in Canada that we currently experience, where people have to leave the place that they grew up in. People have to leave their homes where they're culturally rooted in order to find work. So it's not just about this project of, switching from coal, oil, and gas to solar, wind, and water energy. It's about addressing those structural inequalities, inequities that are at the foundations of our society, and figuring out how we can right some of the wrongs that are baked into those social and economic structures that ultimately are what underlie not only the climate crisis, but a whole host of other social and ecological crises that we are experiencing. I'm talking about structural racism, ongoing resource and cultural extraction that are the ongoing legacy of the colonial project that is still underway here in Canada and in other parts of the world. So for me, it's about, yes, thinking about it from this labor perspective, figuring out how people, communities can lead the transition. And I think, Seth, to your point, in Oshawa, we have this amazing example of a union doing just what you've called them to do, of leading the way, of Unifor saying, we are going to make sure that the provincial and federal governments come to the table with investments to allow us to electrify this plant in Oshawa so that we can keep producing cars that will serve a new market that's emerging in this climate safe economy with electric vehicles. So, we're starting to see that happen. But I think we need to be thinking about it on this structural level of, okay, how do we make sure that environmental climate policies have those positive social outcomes that all of us have identified desiring as an intended result of those policies rather than an incidental result of those policies? How do we make sure that community prosperity, that reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, that respecting the sovereignty and inherent rights of Indigenous communities, that addressing the crisis of environmental racism that we feel here in Canada? How do we make sure that all of these things are baked in to the environmental and climate policies that we will need to mount in response to these tragic, devastating impacts that we are already experiencing and that we are seeing right now play out right in front of us here in Canada and around the world? So that's really what it means to me. It's about it getting bigger, about it being about us all engaging collectively in this project to figure out how we can live in greater harmony with each other, with our communities, and with the planet.
That was wonderfully said, Kat, and Seth as well, right before. Thank you very much. You really brought us the broader picture that I was hoping we could get to. So thank you, both of you.
And if I could just squeeze one word in there.
Please,
so now take that and then put it on a wall and make sure that people connect with it, and that it's gorgeous as well, and it's gonna last for 30 years. That's the task we're giving to artists like Bruno and Chad at the moment.
Yes, the revolution must be beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. And yeah, that does make Bruno and Chad, your work, that does make it even more impressive that you took that vision and you put it in an image. Seth, I know you have to go, so we'll just quickly wave goodbye before we go to the next part of our discussion. The public has been engaging quite a bit with us over the chat, and that's wonderful. You've been putting comments and a lot of enthusiasm in there. I'd love to hear your questions now, folks, so feel free to use the chat. And in the meantime, I want to go back quickly to Rebecca first and then Derek to hear in the most concrete manner, what are your next steps for you? What are the next, challenges, great ideas, great projects? What's happening next after this wonderful project came to life? So Rebecca, do you want to share with us what's next for you?
So Green Jobs Oshawa came about as a result of GM announcing that they were going to close the plant and leave. And Green Jobs Oshawa really felt that with the climate crisis and horrible income inequality and a community that was facing a lot of disruption and hard times coming because of the loss of these jobs in the manufacturing, that we needed to think bigger and think differently. And it's what really brought us to the idea of public ownership of the GM plant, using it to manufacture things for social need instead of just corporate profit. And we faced several roadblocks in the path to trying to make that dream a reality. And so some of the things that we're focusing on right now is we started a conversation, and we were amazed at how many people engaged with us in this conversation about how we could do things differently, what a just transition could look like, how do we expand. Oftentimes people hear just transition and they're thinking just of the oil and gas workers who are, or the energy workers who are going to be impacted, but it's not, it's all of us. Climate change is going to impact all of us, and it's going to impact the way that we do everything. And so Green Jobs Oshawa continues to try to engage people in this conversation about how can we root this transition so that it is injustice, so that it is about community, so that it is about workers. And I mean, another example is, obviously everybody knows that we've just come and are continuing to experience a pandemic, and that at the beginning of the pandemic, we saw our global supply chains just collapse, and we couldn't get the equipment, the medical, the masks, the shields, the respirators. We didn't have access to that. And so we recognize that we need to have, we need to protect some manufacturing and some production, that's important for our survival and for us to move forward. And one of the things that Green Jobs Oshawa is really proud that we did is that we really pushed for GM to retool and start producing some of that equipment. They were doing it in the States. Why couldn't they do it here in Canada? And they did. They ended up making 10 million medical masks that were desperately needed by us, our frontline heroes and regular people. So, I mean, we're continuing to look for opportunities to expand this conversation. And I guess I will leave off at that for now.
Thank you, Rebecca. And thank you for reminding us, we haven't mentioned too much the pandemic in this event, but thank you for reminding us that when we know there's a crisis, we know how to also mobilize and organize relatively rapidly to get the things we need. And some of it is getting industry, getting the skills, getting the workers to help us where we need them exactly. And so, I mean, we could make a lot of parallels between those two crises, but really this is one that sticks out to me in what you said is we have to be retooling and reinventing, reusing what we already know how to do to address the climate crisis and the many crises that are intersecting with it, as Kat provided before. So thank you, Rebecca, for that important reminder. Derek, what about yourself? What's next for you folks at the Postal Workers? What's next for the project?
I guess, first of all, some of the roadblocks involved in a just transition through our Delivering Community Power campaign is the commitments from all levels of government. We haven't got that yet. I do find Canada Post and Crown corporations have a huge disadvantage when it comes to retrofitting, manufacturing, or infrastructure, as private corporations are allowed to apply for government grants to assist in that retrofitting, but Crown corporations are exempt from that. So that's one thing is a roadblock right now. Another roadblock, of course, is that we are trying to engage our corporation into getting parts of our Delivering Community Power campaign into our collective agreement. And again, we need a full commitment from Canada Post to make that happen. Some of the next steps I think that we're looking ahead to is federal elections coming up. This is an opportunity for everyone to get out there, meet their candidates, talk about a just transition, talk about Green Jobs Oshawa, talk about the Delivering Community Power campaign, and get commitments from the next level of government that may be coming in the fall if there's an election. I think I've covered just about everything in that part. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Derek. I appreciate how Derek always keeps things so simple for me to understand as well, and that is very appreciated. We've had a few questions, and maybe, I don't know if Bruno and Chad, you're still here, but we've had a few questions about the art itself that we could return to before we log off. Oh, and we have a friend on the call, wonderful. We can also meet her at the same time. But Bruno, I think a question that was in the chat was, okay, so we've started articulating it. This is a huge problem, and not one that maybe you've been thinking about forever. Like, it's a topic that was quite kind of new to you. So can you walk us through the process of hearing about these complexities and then how you kind of put them together into art? So you spoke to that a little bit before, but I think the audience wants to hear more about that process of taking a huge complex idea and making it into one image. Do you want to tell us more about the struggles and the ways you achieve that?
Well, I just want to say that it wasn't just me, you know. They were literally using my brain and my hands to as a tool for them to create that image, you know. So I was the translation of it. So most of the elements there, you know, I put the base off. It's almost like you know, you want a chocolate cake. Okay, there's the, you know, I put it there. It's on the frame, and whatever dressing they choose to put it, you know, I kind of translate and see what's gonna look good and what's not, and you know, select what it's really important, and we get it to. It was a lot of back and forth actually, and you know, working with Rebecca and Andre and you know, all the team on that. Until it was a very short time for us to come up with a concept, and like I'm just so glad that one concept that Chad and we discussed in the beginning was the land, and there was a few other pieces and details that it had to be replaced for what it was more important, and it would really like translate a lot more what the messaging is than what it was there before. So basically that's literally what happened. I sent like the first image, it was very close to what it is right now, and so they just added those very important elements, and I kind of Chad and we kind of like, you know, made the magic happens there with the spray cans, and yeah. But it's really a team effort. It's not just me or Chad or you know. You know, again, I was just the arm there doing it, but the idea was theirs, you know.
I'm sure you're being quite humble there, but that makes a lot of sense. And I find that that's probably a great lesson for all the folks that want to work on a just transition in general, is we're going to have a lot of conversations, a lot of back and forth, and we can address this hugely complex situation, but we're going to have to talk a lot and use each other's skills and all of that. So thanks, Bruno.
Well, I mean, you know, first of all, people got to be open, especially artists. You got to be open of like, you know, being very flexible, working with different people, and you know, put your ego aside, because this is way more important. You know, you gotta understand that you are doing something that it's not just for you and just for the community. It's like for everybody, and it's literally a piece that is not just an advertisement for the planet, but it carries a lot more, right? Everyone wants to be proud of it if they're touching it. So yeah, that's it.
Can I weigh? I know you didn't ask for me to weigh in, but I think Bruno, thank you for your words, Bruno, for sure. And I think everyone's being a little polite too, because as much as we are standing here really happy with what has come out of it, it was a kind of an emotional journey. I mean, for me at least. There are tight time frames. It's hot. It's raining. There's a variety of opinions in there, and everyone is feeling the weight. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but is feeling the weight of carrying this incredibly important message, and wanting to represent, give space for the artist to bring his artistry and his world-renowned talent into there, for the partners to carry the work of the workers who they see every day in their plant, and we're fighting for their future. We're at 103 Simcoe Street South in Oshawa, which is in the middle of a health and addiction epidemic that Chad can tell you about. This is why we chose to work with Chad, because he focuses on areas that of the community that can use more love. And you got all of this weight that you're carrying on your shoulders, and you want to balance that and not be thinking about that all the time, because you're creating, and you want to have it a positive environment where you can create. And I have to say, to speak to the professionalism of both Bruno and Chad, and the partners who most of us are either very early in working in an artistic process or have never done it before. And we've got all these literal things in our heads and trying to give them to Chad and Bruno in ways that are supportive and understanding. And it's a beautiful process. And for me, I was the day after we all left each other, I was exhausted. I knew none of them wanted to see me for a few days for sure. But then within a few hours, just missing how and respecting how vulnerable everybody let themselves be, and that changed at a different rate for different people throughout the process. Some came very vulnerable at first, some needed a little bit more time, but to go through that experience together, Chad, I really hope that we've left a mark on Oshawa that you guys are proud to be a part of, for sure. So sorry for jumping in there.
Oh
but
yeah, no
I
worries.
just wanted to get that in.
Well, just to clarify what you just said, it was basically Andre contacting me like, okay, there's a change. I don't want Bruno to kill me. How do I tell him? And I'm like, okay, I'll bring it up. Let me, so it was pretty amazing though. And the cool thing is that the coolest thing for me is I got heavily educated on something that I wasn't aware of. I was aware, but so what Bruno is saying is how the first concept and how the concept got changed is because me and Bruno, we talked about how we were going to create the mural and the concept, but what we were thinking was green energy. We weren't thinking about the fight and the politics involved and the protests and the passion behind it. So me and Bruno like quickly got educated that this is bigger than what we thought it was. And it's not that we weren't, it's just I think we were a little naive in the beginning that we kind of got this. And throughout the process, I think me and Bruno walked away with a lot more education, and like we're a lot more educated on the subject than we were before. And it made me very proud of what's going on in Oshawa. Because I know I'm doing something and I'm out there and I'm putting in work and I come home exhausted at the end of the day. But to see other people that are doing tenfold that and they're out there making changes for the future. And I have kids, so it means a lot to me. And I'm thankful that I was involved in this project. So
Thanks, Chad, and I see Bruno's just taking a picture here at the same time. We're getting close to the end of our events, but Kat, I think you had another question for Chad before we leave.
Yeah, it's actually a great segue from what you were just saying, Chad, because I'm really I want to hear more about Signs of Life. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you work and what was the impetus behind starting it?
Yeah, so I'm a graffiti artist. I started doing murals in Oshawa in 2006-ish. And all the first murals I ever did got painted over by the city. So I just continued doing murals, and I knew, kind of like we all knew, Bruno can probably say the same thing, it changed our life. So we knew the worth that the art form of graffiti had, where society saw it as a bad thing, and they were afraid of it. The municipalities were totally afraid of it. To even introduce it into the city. And then now the pendulum over time has swung, and now society likes graffiti art when it's done right. Obviously, there's good and bad to everything. But now that society likes it, me and Bruno just happened to be very good at it. So we did it when it wasn't looked down upon. And now that it's a positive thing, we just happen to be the guys that are kind of leading the charge. And Bruno, he's much more talented than me, but I do my best. But for example, the graffiti alley in Toronto, the famous graffiti alley that gets like thousands of tourists every day. Rick Mercer does his rants in the alley. Those alleys, when I was 17, they put me in Don jail for painting it. So I was painting in the alley. The police came, arrested me, and brought me to jail. Last year, that same alley just won the Toronto Tourism Award for graffiti. So it shows you that the change in society. So moving forward, I ended up opening up a shop in Oshawa, which was called the Paint Factory, and it was an art gallery and a studio, and we did workshops with kids. And it was really tough because the landlords wouldn't help us. The city never showed up to any of our events. And we're sitting here doing all this amazing stuff for the community, and it was like you're fighting on your own. And it ended up being a better idea to convert to a mobile business due to the fact that it wasn't safe for us to bring kids and say that it's a safe place when it really, in realistic, like it wasn't a safe place due to the surrounding area. So moving forward, what I decided with Signs of Light is that, so with the Paint Factory, my business is if you hire me, I do artwork. But Signs of Life was to take walls where the landlords weren't hiring me. They're great walls that would totally improve the community, but we just couldn't get funding from the owners. So what we decided to do is start the Signs of Life project so that we can get partnerships, and the partners can invest in us to bring in some of the most amazing artists like Bruno and display a message and clean up these areas. And a lot of the times we don't really want to have a message too. We just want to do a beautification project. But it's up to some of these bigger companies to invest in us to help the community. And that's what Signs of Life is. So we're finding the money from little angles to make the community a better place for our kids. And and what we want to do is create spaces where people will park the car, get out, go have a coffee, go shop at one of the shops, and invest their money in the downtown, create foot traffic. And the more foot traffic we have, the more the problems won't be magnified as much. So that's kind of what we do.
Brilliant.
Sorry, that was a long, I just feel like I talked forever.
It was great.
That was awesome, Chad. Thank you so much. That's so wonderful to hear. Folks, we're getting near the end of our event. I know maybe we don't want this to end because it's so inspiring, but also we obviously invite you to go by the mural itself, and for the many calls to action that we now have, now that you're all inspired and fueled with this new passion for a just transition, I will go back to Andre and ask you, what can people do? What now? What happens after this mural is up there?
No, thank you, Ali, for the question, and thank you, Chad, for rivaling me on going as long as I do when I speak, so I feel more comfortable. But I think Chad called out a lot of it, is go, and as you just said, go out to the murals, go and see them. The other thing too for us is Seth made the parallel to World War II and the role that art played. The government funded that art to mobilize communities. That's not the case right now, and so we've got organizations like Green Jobs Oshawa and the postal workers. Have sponsors like the Council of Canadians, CUPW Ontario, the Centre for Social Justice, CUPE Durham Northumberland, and Unifor Retirees Chapter, Local 222, to name a few, who help fund this work and help put this on there because of their belief of the message, because of their connection to the community, because of their support for these two incredible visions. And so getting involved in any way you can. Not everybody can sponsor, but some people can, their organizations can provide support. And so finding any way that you can, I think, is one of the themes across our entire space. And so for us, we have created this beautiful mural, but it would be a tragedy if it just stopped just there. The goal of it, as Chad mentioned, is can this then become kind of a community hub where we can have screenings and different community events, education opportunities, bring out families, have lectures there, bring out local unions or workers there, and bring folks out and allow it to be a more creative engagement. So we've got a few of those coming up. And for any other organizations that are attending today who would be interested in hosting an event there, whether you have money or not, please reach out to us. we can figure out partners together, get sponsors in together, and really get communities involved in this work. And that's the whole point. And I think that's one of the things that's different with a mural than the way that propaganda was in the past. It's really rooted in the community. And so we really hope that we can continue to make this a community event. So message us, call us. Our socials will all go in the chat, and reach out to us. And we can't wait for this to be a memorable part of Oshawa, and for this to be for the surrounding area of Oshawa to reflect the art that's up on the wall.
Wonderful, wonderful. What I'm hearing is we're all going to go to Oshawa whenever we can, whenever it's obviously all safe for us to do it. And we're going to bring our families, bring our friends, bring our coworkers to learn together much more. Thank you very much. What I like to do before we close the event is kind of get a final message from each of the panelists, because you've had so much to say, and the chat is actually demanding more of your vision for the rest. So I want to hear how this event has left you feeling, and then I kind of want to hear, what do you want others to take away from this? If you could make it, as short as possible, how do you feel, and how do you hope others feel after this? Is one of you compelled to start, maybe, or I'll just have to pick someone? I can start with Bruno. Go for it. Thank you.
Not that I just want to get out of here, but I do want to thank everybody, and I feel like I'm gonna leave this meeting a lot more smarter. Getting to hear all of you guys and everything that it's been happening, and you were so on it. For me as an artist, it's really important to know that too, and absorb and take that into consideration, and hopefully apply in my next project, right? So for me, I just I gained so much right now, and I appreciate all of you guys. I just want to say out there for everybody that is seeing this and who will see, because it's being recorded, take this as a lesson, and this is not just our fight, but it's everybody's fight. And if everyone do a little act, just act as you guys are acting, and I'm doing my part, we're gonna change something. And it could be a little fragment, but if everybody work together, we can change a lot. So thank you. And whatever tool you have, use it.
Awesome, wonderful. Whatever tool you have, use it. Let's go to Derek.
So I think what I got out of this whole mural process is I made new allies and new friends. This was an amazing experience for me, for everyone involved, and I'm hopefully that we're connected forever, and we can work together on other projects moving forward. I think what I would like everyone else to start doing now is continue advocacy for our Just Transition. We would like everyone to join up to our campaign, so you can visit us at deliveringcommunitypower.ca or at DeliverComPower on Twitter, or our Facebook page is Delivering Community Power as well. So we'd like everyone to sign up and find out ways you can assist in our campaign, and maybe help mobilize events or be part of any future events or mobilization that we're doing. We'll be able to outreach to you. But thank you, everyone. It was an amazing experience.
Thank you. I love that collaboration and discovering more of what you're going to be doing. Rebecca, how do you feel?
One of the big things that I take away from this collaboration is the amount of respect I have for the amount of work that the artists do, the amount of work that Bruno and Chad did, the time that they put in, the hours that it took. It doesn't just happen by magic, right? They really put a lot of effort into it, and I have so much respect for that process and for the value that they've brought into our community as a result of it. So thank you very, very much for that. And I mean, it's the respect extends though. It starts like a little ripple, but I think it's pretty obvious that as a group, we all enjoyed working together, and we really feel like we've built something. And it's funny, as I've been listening to people talk, how everybody is sharing the joy and sharing the accolades with each other. So and that's a hallmark, I think, of a project that has been really, really successful and worked well together as a team. And so I'm really excited about that, because when people come together and they work hard and, you know, you're driven by a vision, amazing things can happen. So I guess what I would ask for people to do that are listening to this is think big and think bigger, and don't wait to be told what to do. We have brains that work well, and if we're not sure, well, we have networks of people that we can talk to. You can do an online search, you can talk to your politicians, you can talk to your friends, but don't sell yourself short. We need to think bigger. We deserve better. We deserve clean air. We deserve housing. We deserve a better world. So that would be my message. Thank you.
Rebecca, that was amazing. I want that on a poster, on a t-shirt, and on a mural. Kat, how do you feel?
I guess I just keep reflecting on this quote that a longtime climate activist that I know said, which is like, at first we thought that we needed to get people's minds, and so we told them all the facts about climate change, and we thought that that would change things and make, you know, governments act the way that we needed to. So we told people the facts, and things didn't change. And then we thought maybe we need to get to their pocketbook. So we got The Economist to get on board. The Economist got on board, and still things didn't change. We got the spiritual leaders on board, and that has been really important and profound, but it still hasn't gotten people on board. And what we need to be doing is getting into people's hearts. And I think that's what art does. And so I just feel so nourished and inspired by this event, and really appreciate all the work that went into it. And that keeps going into the transformation that's happening in Oshawa and communities across the country. And thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Chad, do you want to share with us how you feel, how you hope others feel? I don't know if you're still with us. There we go.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to turn my... There we go. Yeah, no, I think it was an amazing experience. I'm just here painting my kids' room as well as we talk, so... Yeah, no, it's an amazing experience, and I thank everybody. I thank Andre, all the hard work he did, Rebecca, Derek, and everybody else involved. And it was definitely something that I'm going to be taking with me for the rest of my life. I'm going to be continuing to educate myself on the subject. So thank you to everybody, and we really appreciate it.
Wonderful. It's amazing to hear how much joy came from this collaboration. It makes us want to collaborate much, much more with each other. Andre, a few final words on how you feel and what you hope others feel as we finish off this event.
I had to go off camera earlier because I thought I was going to have things dripping from my eyes. But I'm very touched by everyone who's made the time to come on the call for the every day of work that we've all put in together. There's a couple folks we've been reluctant to mention so far, which are our incredible team who produced all of the digital content that you've seen tonight. We're going to put up a making of video that we'll share shortly. And that was led by Peter Finley, who did a documentary called Company Town on Green Jobs Oshawa and the closing of the GM plant, which, speaking to art and how much that what that does is everyone who was a part of this project, the second they saw that, were like, we've been so entrenched in all of the details and how they felt when they saw that message, and how well Peter got those messages across through that was an inspiration for all of us, and something we knew we were trying to live up to with this project. So I really Violetta. Hi Violetta. And this is who we're doing it for, right? But a big shout out to Peter Finley, big shout out to Akshay and Akshay Monsi and Bailey Higgins for their incredible dedication there every day for the week. Hi Shalak in the background there. Thank you again for also letting Bruno stay with us for 8 days away from his family and that dedication. So yes, thank you very much. I don't want to go on much longer. I could, as we know, but thank you very much from everybody. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you, folks. Thank you all for taking the time to speak with us. Much, much appreciated. I feel so inspired. This brings us to the end of this digital reveal. I hope you will share the recording with your friends and family, because if you feel inspired, I hope you're going to also feel compelled to inspire others. I really look forward to seeing all of you ask for a Just Transition in whatever places you can do so. And I really hope you're leaving energized, enthusiastic, and again, inspired as all of us are. So thank you. Have a great evening, everybody, and hope to see you soon. Stay safe.
And thank you too, Ali. Thank you for hosting tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Violetta.
Bye. All right.
Yeah.
I hope to see you guys soon. Take care.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you so much.